Part 104. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 1034. Lu Feng didn't say anything and thought about it calmly. King Qin Yingzhen's words meant that he wanted to find a ministerial team for young Master Fu Su. He was assigned by the system to be the half-brother of Qin King Yingzhen, but he had always been weak and sick, so he was raised in the palace every day. Not many people know about Lu Feng's existence, but it is undeniable that because of his poor health, King Qin Yingzhen's grandfather Qin Wangju, the son of the famous King Qin Zhaoxiang, loved Lu Feng more and gave him lots of land and status. This status was higher than other princes, so Qin King Yingzhen wanted to take advantage of it. Before Lu Feng came back, the relationship between King Qin Yingzhen and Lu Feng had always been harmonious, so as not to arouse his suspicion. Is Brother Wang worried that Yuz will be bullied by that kid around Fu Su? Brother Wang, don't worry, I will teach Fu Su strictly and will never let him use his status to oppress others. Qin Wang Yingzhen looked serious and promised Lu Feng again and again that he would make his children respect their family very much. Now he just hopes that someone with the right status will stay by Fu Su's side. Let Fu Su's identity as the eldest son suppress the ministers of the court. After all, Fu Su is just a baby now. For the ministers of the court, he has no other achievements except that he is the eldest son of King Qin Yingzhen. Since the reform of the Qin state, all he speaks based on his own achievements. Even among the princes and nobles, there are very few people who have no achievements. So if Fu Su has nothing to offer in the future, he will definitely not be able to suppress the ministers in the court and become the next qualified the heir. But if he has someone to protect him from now on, it will be completely different. Lu Feng still did not speak, but his eyes kept staring at the sword on Qin Wang Yingzhen's waist. Today Wenjian, if in history it does not exist at all. It only exists in Qin Shi Minjiu's worldview. King Qin Yingzhen also noticed Lu Feng's gaze, which was always staring at his sword, so he laughed and took off his sword, very generously. Leave it to Lu Feng. Is Brother Wang interested in this thing? If Brother Wang likes it, I will give it to you now. Qin King Yingzhen didn't seem to have any reluctance to part with it, which surprised Lu Feng, because in his impression, King Qin in Qin Shi Minjiu always valued this sword. For this reason, Lu Feng did not take over this sword, but quietly waited for King Qin Yingzhen to continue speaking. Tianwen sword is the best sword in the world. Although I have always cherished it, if Brother Wang likes me, I will not feel reluctant to part with it. What's more, as long as Brother Wang doesn't ask for Lulu sword from me, Tianwen sword will be given to Brother Wang. So what? The symbol of being a king in the Qin state is the Lulu sword. When King Qin Yingzhen returned to the state of Qin, King Qin Zhaoan was very happy to give the Lulu sword to King Qin Yingzhen, thinking that this grandson was extraordinary. And this the Lulu sword also means that the throne of the king of Qin was passed on to Yingzhen. Every generation of Qin kings will wear this Lulu sword. Later, when Jingke assassinated Qin, the king of Qin walked around the pillar, and the ministers shouted, "The king bears the sword." The sword is Lulu sword, so it has another title called backhand sword. No wonder King Qin Yingzhen said this now, he was using Tianwen sword to win over Lu Feng. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 1035. Lu Feng only accepted the Tianwen sword at this time. It seems that he was overly worried. King Yingzhen of Qin was indeed very powerful. If he could win a useful prince with his own sword, he would exchange it without hesitation. His big heart is truly incomparable. In the heart of King Qin Yingzhen, talents are always more important than these external things. As long as no one wants his throne as king of Qin, other things may not be worth mentioning to him. Young Master Fu Su will definitely become a talented person in the future. Your Majesty, there is no need to worry so much. Lu Feng said a word of comfort. After all, according to history, the young master Fusu is indeed considered a talent. If he can successfully take over the throne, the empire created by Qin Shi Huang may not necessarily die after his death. Of course, for Lu Feng, it was impossible to tell Qin Shi Huang directly that the inheritance of the throne was not going smoothly. His most important task in this dynasty was to collect famous swords in the world, so he had to think again about whether to change history. The two of them were supporting each other. After talking about Su's affairs for a while, when it was very late, King Qin Yingzheng went back to rest. After all, he had to go to court the next day. But because Lu Feng had already obtained the Tianwen sword, there was no need to follow him to the court in the morning. After confirming where Tianwen sword was, he turned around and asked Lu Buledin and the others to prepare to leave Qin to find other famous swords in the world. Qin King Yingzheng received the news of their departure the next day, and he didn't know what his expression would be. Now, at this time, Gai Nai had not yet come to the side of Qin King Yingzheng, and the Yuanhong sword had not yet been officially forged. The origin of the Yuanhong sword was the Canhong sword made by the mother of the famous swordsmith Su Fuzi. It was also known as the poison sword in history. Dagger Cold Moon Blade is said to be a dragon-slaying sword. Its first owner was Jing Kai, the leader of the Mahist family. After Jing Kai failed to assassinate Qin, it came into the hands of his second owner, King Qin. King Qin gathered swordsmiths from all over the world to recast it. Hong was later given to Gai Nai by King Qin. It was a pity that the sword was later broken by Wei Zhuang's shark teeth. But now that Lu Feng has come to this world, maybe when this sword is given to King Qin, Lu Feng wants to leave. But it is not in the hands of King Qin yet, so Lu Feng plans to go to Confucianism first. Confucianism has a world-famous sword ranked third in the sword manual, which is Tai sword. It is the leader of Confucianism, Funian. The sword was jointly forged by two great swordsmiths, Oyu Yuzi and Gan Jiang, and was regarded as the treasure of Chu state. Minjiao in the Qin dynasty once introduced that before the sword was formed, the sword energy had already existed between heaven and earth. The famous sword master Feng Huzi said, however, only the inner power of the sword wielder can inspire the power of Tai sword energy. After a battle with Master Xiaomeng, the current head of Taoist Tianzong, the world was able to see the power of Tai sword and Fushimi's awe-inspiring power. Righteous. But for Lu Feng, there is no need to worry about this problem. Before the people of the world truly see the power of the Tai sword, he will find Fushimi, and even if he robs it, he will take the Tai sword from Fushimi's hand. On the way to Confucianism, Lu Feng was still calculating how many swords there were in Confucianism, or he might as well snatch them all at once. Zhang Liang seemed to be studying at Confucianism, but he was still young now. I don't a Euro trademark T know if I got the Lingxiu sword. Although the Lingxiu sword ranked 10th, it was also a rare and famous weapon. Lu Feng was also very interested in Zhang Liang a Euro trademark S sword. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 1036. Xiangjian Master Feng Huzi once commented that the body is beautiful and beautiful, the whole body is crystal clear and cannot be looked at closely. The green leather scabbard is natural and inlaid with 18 North Sea jade blood red hearts. Although it is a sharp weapon, it is not half bloody. It has an ethereal and celestial atmosphere. It is the choice of a famous weapon. The sword is used to carry one's aspirations and clarify one's heart. The man who made the sword has penetrated the world and knows the world. He has been ups and downs in troubled times for many years, but he has not met the genius left behind in the world. Then it will not be its true God. The empty valley is facing the wind, and Lingxiu is in a world of peace. His advocacy of good things is also recorded in history books as Lingxiu Tianzun. From all these signs, it can be seen that the sword can be called a gentleman's sword. Lu Feng also has a great desire to collect such suggestions. It's not far from Qin state to Confucianism. Although transportation is inconvenient in this era, because the speed along the way is almost the same as that of a rapid march, Lu Feng and others arrived in less than 3 days. It's just that the door of Ruhia has been closed tightly. There are only some Confucian disciples guarding the outside and no one else. They seem to have closed their doors to thank guests during this period. Lu Feng found it very strange. Confucianism didn't seem to be in tit for tat with anyone recently, and Qin's Yingzheng didn't take action against Confucianism. So what was going on that kept Confucianism closing its doors? Guan Yu, go and find out why the door of Confucianism is closed now. Lu Feng could only tell Guan Yu to find out what was going on. If the door of Confucianism was always closed, how could he get in? If he couldn't get in, he wouldn't be able to get the famous sword. Yes, I will go right away. Guan Yu went to do things immediately. Fortunately, in this era, there are all kinds of people, so although Guan Yu had a red face, it did not attract anyone's attention. It is really ridiculous to say that everyone in future generations people say that King Yingzheng of Qin was a tyrant, but he never allowed 100 schools of thought to contend, and he never killed innocent people indiscriminately. During his reign, he never killed any meritorious officials. Even the people who burned books and buried Confucians were only some outsiders. A deceitful sorcerer, such a monarch must be called a tyrant, which shows that the people of later generations are not sober-minded. Not long after, Guan Yu had found out the matter and came back to report. Your Majesty, young master, I heard that someone came to the Confucian house 2 days ago carrying a giant sword and made a big fuss, which caused a lot of damage to the Confucian family and the house. They can't see anyone, so they have closed the door recently to thank guests. The owner of the juk sword came here and made a big fuss, letting all the people nearby know about it, so it is not difficult to find out. Lu Feng felt a little strange. Why did he come to Confucianism to make a fuss? The peasants and the Confucians have no grudges, right? The juk sword is ranked 11th in the sword manual. The current holder is Shenqi, who is known as the black swordsman of the peasant family. The sword is broad and thick, and has the potential to split mountains and crack the earth when it is swung. According to legend, it was created by Ouyuzi. When it is swung, the sword energy is formed on the sword body to hurt people invisible. Strictly speaking, the juk sword is actually an épée. As the saying goes, an épée has no edge and is ingenious. Qin Shimingyu seems to have a misunderstanding of this sword. So the sword is painted with a sword edge, but it does not give people the atmosphere of a heavy sword without an edge. But in any case, there is no hatred between the Confucians and the peasants. Why would they come to make trouble with the Confucians? It is better to say that the two families we have always been close, and helping each other is common. 3 Kingdoms, I have a job transfer palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 1037. Lu Feng could only temporarily decide to stay near the Confucian gate to observe for 2 days. But after staying for a full week, nothing has changed here. The door of Confucianism still has not been opened, and no Confucian disciples have been seen coming out. Young master, the young master has climbed over the wall, and Lu Buletin has been following him. Should we go and have a look? One day, Guan Yu came back and said that Lu Yuz ran out, as if he wanted to show off. Lu Buletin was worried, so he went with Lu Yuz. The other 2 people followed Lu Feng as bodyguards. However, he still had to report the matter to the boss. News. Can you sneak in alone? Feng Xian helped him fight many people. Lu Feng still doesn't know that Lu Yuz's current abilities are limited. No matter how talented he is, he can't sneak into Confucianism alone. It's obvious that Lu Buletin helped him secretly solve most of his opponents. If Lu Buletin takes action, Guan Yu can't help but I know, so Lu Feng just needs to ask Guan Yu. There are only 13 or 14. There are not many people who are really useful. If the Confucian people hadn't come together to use a joint method like the three talents formation to catch the young master, I'm afraid Lu Buletin wouldn't have had to take action. Lu Yu's ability is limited. Some Confucian disciples discovered Lu Yu's infiltration, and of course they had to stop it. Unfortunately, it was of no use. Of course, Lu Buletin could detect them before they wanted to take action, so he dealt with this group of people in advance. Lu Yu's infiltration, only he thought he had sneaked in, but in fact it was Lu Buletin who was killing him behind the scenes, and now Fu Nian had been alarmed. Well, let's go take a look together. It's just closed, so we can just call in. Lu Feng, who originally planned to be more civilized, had no choice but to take people to Confucianism. Their closed door was just a kick in front of Guan Yu. The three people walked in dignifiedly. Zhao Yun was on the right. He stared at the panicked Confucian disciples with sharp eyes. Some panicked Confucian disciples originally wanted to maintain their gentlemanly demeanor, but after seeing Guan Yu and Zhao Yun, two people with such high martial arts, they could only wait for the Confucian disciples to be stronger. The leader came to solve the problem. When Lu Feng and the two people around him went in, Lu Yu's was already surrounded. Fu Nian and Zhang Liang were both in front of them. Fu Nian looked serious and Zhang Liang smiled. Who are you? Why trespass? We Confucians have always been kind to others and never offend others easily. Your Excellency looks at me, where did you come from? Fu Nian tried his best to suppress the anger in his heart. He would not have appeared here originally. He only came here overnight because Zhang Liang wrote to him saying that he had something to discuss. But he did not expect that he would encounter such a bad thing the next day. Obviously he only then did he realize that he had been slapped in the face by Sheng Qi, who was carrying a giant sword. Before he even went to settle the accounts with the farmer, someone else came to his door. Fu Nian even felt strange. Could it be that their Confucian family has always been too kind, so people think they can step on Confucianism? Ah! Your sword. It looks very good, is it famous? Lu Yuz acted as if he hadn't heard his question. He looked at Fu Nian's sword with burning eyes, with the three words I want written all over his face. Ever since Lu Feng and King Qin Yingzheng came to Tianwen's sword, Lu Yuz realized that his father might want to collect these famous swords in the world, and he actively wanted to show off. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 1038. Lu Feng was speechless when he saw his stupid son being so active. The people here were all Confucian disciples, and they had been educated as gentlemen since childhood. They were all high-spirited scholars. This immediately shows that Lu Yuz is a little anxious because he wants to get his own things. It seems that there is still a long way to learn. It is business to let Lu Yuz read more. This sword is named Taie, and it is indeed on the list. Are you kicking my Confucian door because of Taie's sword? Fu Nian gritted his teeth and looked at Lu Yuz. If he hadn't been constrained by the sage's way of beating elementary school students, he might have rushed to beat people at this time. Because personal problems have affected the entire Confucian school, this is unacceptable to Fu Nian. He is a model of a gentleman. A representative of Heirana Euro trademark S righteousness. If you came here to hurt other Confucian disciples because you have a personal grudge against me, then please move on and let us resolve our private grudges today. Fu Nian could only ask Lu Yuz to leave here, as he did not want to affect Confucianism because of personal matters. But no matter how hard he searched in his memory, he could not find Lu Yuz, so he still felt very strange that he had a personal grudge with Lu Yuz. I don't care what you want. I only want Taie's sword, and you just need to give me Taie's sword. Whatever compensation you want, if I can do it, I will still agree to it. Lu Yuz was a little impatient. The 14-year-old boy's character was revealed at this moment. He is the age where he is usually rebellious. He will not be rebellious and rude to Lu Feng, which does not mean he has a good attitude toward other people. What's more, he is the eldest son of the empire, no matter who is in front of him, can only kneel down. Even if he is in another world, it does not mean that he will belittle his identity. When a young man is proud, he will naturally look down on others. Although Feng traveled from another world, it was because the environment in which he grew up was modern education, and he had modern thoughts, which is why he was so special. Lu Yuz grew up in an ancient environment. His thoughts were naturally the same as those of the ancients. Fu Nian was so angry that even though he was very knowledgeable, he was so angry that Lu Yuz almost had a myocardial infarction. If you don't give Tai sword away, you won't get anything in exchange for it. Fu Nian refused Lu Yuz without hesitation. The number of famous swords is limited, and it is not easy to get one of them. It is impossible for him to give it away, not to mention that Tai sword is now very important to Confucian people. He is simply the representative of the Confucian leader, and he is even less likely to give the sword away. Mean. Lu Yuz muttered. Fu Nian's face turned darker. What do you mean by being stingy? If it's something else, just give it away. It's not a big deal. But what I want is his sword. This accessory is simply his life, how could it be given away? Yuz, come here. Lu Feng stepped forward and told Lu Yuz not to rush too far ahead, as he would be easily targeted by the Confucian people. Just let Lu Buletin and the others do these small things. Although Fu Nian is very powerful, but he wants to fight with Lu Buletin and the others, so far from it. Fang Tian's painted halberd is also a rare weapon, and the sharpness of the weapon is not inferior to that of the Tai sword. When Lu Yuz saw Lu Feng coming, he immediately became much more well-behaved, and retreated obediently to stand beside Lu Feng. Fu Nian also saw got it, the rightful owner is here. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 1039. Lu Feng stood in the middle, with Lu Buletin in front and Guan Yu and Zhao Yun on both sides. They were all military generals worth their weight in gold. Fu Nian and Zhang Liang were both strong in martial arts, so they certainly felt the aura of the strong. Neither of them dared to move without permission, and even privately said hello to the rest of the Confucian disciples to leave. This group of cannon fodder was simply not enough in front of Lu Buletin and the others, who were highly skilled in martial arts. If they continued to stay here, they might suffer the aftermath. There is no need for cannon fodder to appear here. In order to reduce the deaths of their own people, the two of them will of course ask others to leave immediately. I don't trademark T know what grudges you have against me, but if you insist on chasing me here, I have only one answer at any time: give away the Tea trademark a sword. No matter what this group of people want to do, for Fu Nian, he has only one goal, and that is to tell them that he will never give Tai sword away. If you are unwilling to take the initiative to give it to us, then we can only use force to grab it. You are also a person who has learned martial arts. Do you have the confidence to face them and win? Lu Feng pointed to the three generals around him. These three were high-level military generals who were famous in history. How could they lose to Fu Nian? Fu Nian couldn't answer. Because he knew in his heart that he couldn't beat him. Even if Zhang Liang were to fight together, he couldn't beat him, but he couldn't say it with his mouth. Even if it was something he knew deep down in his heart, once he said it, his momentum would be weak. He had to maintain his sharp momentum until now. The fight ends. Whether you can beat me or not, of course, you have to decide after you beat me. It is meaningless for you to say this now. Unless you can kill me, otherwise, I will never give you the items in my hand. Fu Nian will not admit defeat or give up. He is the head of Confucianism and a representative of Confucianism. If he is gone, Confucianism can still choose the next representative, but if he gives in here, the entire Confucianism will not be able to look up to him. Started. Zhang Liang also had a firm look on his face. Together with Fu Nian, they both put their hands on the hilts of their swords and looked at Lu Buletin and the other three warily. Don't worry, I won't let them bully you 3 against 2. Lu Buletin alone is enough. If you two can't defeat Lu Buletin together, then I will take away your sword. Lu Feng said the ugly words in front of him. He would not kill the two of them, but he must take away the swords in their hands. In this way, he would have 2 more famous swords. Lu Feng was happy. Fu Nian and Zhang Liang's face looked very ugly. He didn't take them seriously at all. But they couldn't refute yet, so they could only look at Lu Bulet intensely. Of course they couldn't defeat the 3 generals, and they could only defeat one of them. Nian thought that there might be hope for him and Zhang Liang together. Without further ado, Lu Feng took Lu Yuz and the others to take a few steps back to make a suitable space. Lu Buletin stood motionless in the middle, just waiting for Fu Nian and Zhang Liang launched an offensive. The Tai sword and the Lingxiu sword were unsheathed, and the sword light was cold and dazzling in an instant. Lu Feng closed and opened his eyes, and Lu Buletin had already kicked them back. The Tai sword and the Lingxiu sword, after blocking Lu Buletin's kick, the powerful force made the 2 men's hands tremble constantly, and the tiger's mouth was shaken open. Just the 2 of you, you can't survive even 3 moves at my hands. Lu Buletin snorted coldly. 3 kingdoms, I have a job transfer palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 1040. Fu Nian and Zhang Liang were very weak in the face of Lu Bu just now. It was just the first move. The 2 of them used their strength at the same time. One controlled the heart and the other blocked the path. However, it was easy for Lu Buletin to see through, and he stepped forward and kicked him twice. Fu Nian and Zhang Liang had no time to retreat, so they could only resist with their swords. Relying on the specialness of the famous weapon, he could resist Lu Buletin's kick and prevent himself from being directly harmed. Lu Buletin's words won't anger them, but they will give them a headache. They can't even make 3 moves. It seems that they still overestimate themselves. But at this time, you have to bite the bullet. The 2 used strength again, and the speed was even higher than before. The awe-inspiring righteousness made Tai sword unstoppable, but when Lu Buletin saw this, he was not afraid and did not even use Fang Tian's painted halberd. The inner strength was in his hands, and he didn't even try to dodge, but took Fu Nian's move head-on. Zhang Liang followed closely, jumped up from behind Fu Nian, and pierced his face with the Lingxiu sword. Lu Buletin shouted loudly and caught the Tai sword with his upper hand. The forward momentum of the Tai sword stopped abruptly. Fu Nian spurted out a mouthful of blood and flew back. The Tai sword in his hand was firmly grasped by Lu Buletin. Lu Buletin did not forget Zhang Liang's sword. He grabbed the Tai sword in one hand and the Lingxiu sword in the other. Zhang Liang was unable to move forward even half a step, and he was shocked. I originally thought that with Tai sword in front, even if his sword could not hurt, he would be able to force Lu Buletin back. Unexpectedly, Lu Buletin was actually controlled by Lu Buletin. Zhang Liang could only do the next best thing, and wanted to take advantage of the moment when Lingxiu's sword was controlled by Lu Bu. He pressed down with his backhand, grasped the hilt of Tai sword, and wanted to take it back. It's a pity that he still underestimated Lu Buletin's ability. Although Lu Buletin only held a sword in one hand, he was still very steady. Zhang Liang couldn't take back the Tai sword at all. If you want to take the sword back, is it up to you? La 1/4 Buletin had 2 swords. Although he did not take the scabbards from Fu Nian and Zhang Liang, it does not mean that the hands with concentrated internal strength cannot grasp them. Sir, do you have to go against us? Zhang Liang and Fu Nian could only look at each other speechlessly, and shook their heads. They read the signal in each other's eyes that they should not mess around. The other party is so powerful, there is no need for them to fight each other for no reason. It is not a good thing to create a strong enemy for yourself, and it is not good for future development. The strongest people in the entire Confucian school cannot defeat each other here, let alone others. Although it is a pity to lose two famous weapons, but if it can buy peace, it is worth it. After Zhang Liang said this, he and Fu Nian raised the scabbard of their swords with both hands and gave it to Lu Bu. They knew that if they did not take the initiative to hand it over, Lu Buletin would come to grab it. Since he couldn't defend it anyway, why not be more generous? Who knew that Lu Buletin ignored them at all, put the sword back into its scabbard, turned around and came to Lu Feng, knelt on the ground and handed the two swords to him. Lu Feng. Young master, sword. Lu Feng touched the two swords. They are indeed well-deserved famous weapons. Just touching the scabbard, he could feel the sharpness and coldness coming from the sword body. Lu Feng nodded and asked Lu Buletin to take the sword and retreat. Aside. I heard that Chenqi came to you not long ago with the giant sword. Do you know where he is now? I'm very interested in his giant sword. Lu Feng's question stunned Fu Nian and both of them. Three Kingdoms, I have a job transfer palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 1041. Fu Nian and Zhang Liang are both true gentlemen, and they will not sell out others casually, but now that they, as Confucians, no longer have famous weapons in their hands, they are much weaker against others. Although personal strength is the most important, it is undeniable that when a person has a good weapon in his hand, the strength he can display will definitely double. The two of them looked at each other, hesitant for a moment. If they don't tell Lu Feng the news about Juk, then they will keep the moral principles in their hearts, but they will not be able to keep the Confucian family, because if others know that the Confucian family's current strength is greatly reduced, the enemy may take advantage of his illness. His life. Although Confucian scholars know what a gentleman's style is, it doesn't mean that other people know what a gentleman's style is. If they don't take advantage of you when something goes wrong, why should they wait until you are at your peak to find you again? Others are not stupid, so of course they don't a Euro trademark T want to. There is no one else here now, only you two and my own people. We will never tell anyone about the conversation you two had with me today. How about doing this transaction? Lu Feng talked about the deal with Fu Nian and Zhang Liang. If the two of them could tell Lu Feng where the Juk sword was now, it would help him collect famous swords faster and keep it a secret. Why would he? Why not? This matter has nothing to do with whether you keep the secret or not. We must be able to get over this hurdle in our own hearts. Zhang Liang sighed, feeling very helpless. If the truth of some things could not be known by others, it would certainly be a good thing. But how could upright people like them be afraid of such things? They just couldn't get through the test in their own hearts. Thinking that if he tells all this, there is no doubt that he has betrayed his friends who are also on the right path. Although farmers and Confucians follow different paths, they are both righteous people in the end and have different positions. Just adding insult to injury to others is inconsistent with the core concepts of Confucianism. You know what Chenqi does, and the farmer will not be hostile to you because of him. Lu Feng could persuade Fu Nian and the two of them with a simple sentence. Farmers also have rules. In fact, Sheng Qi has already violated the rules. Even if it is good for the farmer, he should put all this aside. When it comes to the public, the farmer must not cover up in public. Therefore, others cannot interrupt anything, and Confucianism can't talk about the boring talk of enmity with the other party. Fu Nian is right after thinking about it. Anyway, Sheng Qi is so special, carrying a giant sword on his back and slashing everywhere, cutting off the facade of Confucianism. This time, it can't be said that he sold the other party. At most, it is a retaliation. I heard that I went to Lindsay in the state of Qi before, but no one knows what I did there. Shang-Chi didn't talk to anyone, he was like a puppet with a sword, using all his strength to cut down everything he could touch, and then left. All he could see was he walked towards Linzi. Zhang Liang saw that Fu Nian was silent, which meant that he agreed, and briefly told Lu Feng which path Shang-Chi took in the end. Shang-Chi doesn't open his mouth to speak, so only a person like Zhang Liang can judging from some details where this person is probably going. If it were someone else, I'm afraid they wouldn't know at all. That's it, okay, then I'll say goodbye. Lu Feng waved his hand as a greeting and left Confucianism for Linzi. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 1042. Linzi is actually not far from where they are, not to mention that they are chasing people. On the way to chase people, the person in front may not be as fast as them. It may not take 7 or 8 days to catch up. There is a pavilion not far in front of the young master. Why don't we take a rest there and let the horses eat some cold vegetables while we drink some herbal tea? Lu Buletin said from the side. They have been on the road for a while. Even if the people are not tired and the horses are tired, they still need to let the horses rest. But they didn't expect that they were so fast and they couldn't catch up with Shang-Chi. This man has not yet ridden a horse. He relies on his own legs to move forward. He is so fast. It seems that his skills are indeed profound. Okay, after passing this pavilion and continuing on the road, you should arrive in Linzi. You can take a short rest. Lu Feng took the people to the pavilion to rest for a while. He could also ask the store owner if he had passed by someone like Shang-Chi. Anyone who has seen Shang-Chi will never forget the image of Shang-Chi. After all, he is so tall and carries a giant sword on his back. His characteristics are really obvious. Young master, the person you are talking about, I just met this morning. He was running very fast. I just collected her money a second ago. The next second he entered, he disappeared, leaving only footprints on the ground. The owner of the tea stall in the pavilion shook his head. He was still very impressed when talking about this person. He also said that he was old. He didn't even see the other person's back and couldn't find him. If the other person hadn't paid the money, this person would have been lost. How could the boss chase the master and ask for money? Lu Feng frowned. In his impression, Shang-Chi was unconscious. How could he remember that he needed to pay for a meal? There was something wrong with this matter. The one in front of him, if what he said is correct, then is the person he is following Shang-Chi? If not Shang-Chi, why is he carrying the giant K sword? If so, why is he paying? Father, what are you thinking about? You can talk to your son and he will also give you some advice. Lu Yu's looked like he had grown up and wanted to share the burden for his father. Lu Feng just touched his little head dotingly. That silly son, what he is thinking about now, has already known. Of course, Lu Yu's didn't know the plot of Qin Shiming Yu. Even if he told him, it wouldn't be of any help. Okay, if we're almost done resting, let's continue on our way. According to what the store said, the distance between us and that person is already very close. Maybe we can bump into him when we line up at the city gate to enter the city. Lu Feng asked the others to pack up and go straight to the road. Since there are traces of Shang-Chi in front of them, there is no need to stay too much. Soon a group of people were on the road, even faster, and soon they arrived at Linzi city. At the door, there are hundreds of people queuing in front. I don't a Euro trademark T know what happened recently. The city gate of Linzi is under martial law. Everyone must be searched before they can enter the city. Yuz, go and find out what happened ahead and why you have to queue up to enter the city. Also, take a look to see if the tall person I told you about before is in front. Lu Feng had the mentality of training his child and asked him to go out and have a look. Three Kingdoms, I have a job transfer palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 1043. Lu Yuz was very happy. Unexpectedly, he was asked to do something by Lu Feng. He had not accomplished anything for so long since he came to this era. When he was frustrated, Lu Feng arranged it for him. Something happened. He felt that he had finally gained his father's attention, so he quickly agreed to look ahead. Sorry, brother, why are you searching so nervously? I see that Lindsay is singing and dancing, and it doesn't seem like it needs to be checked over and over again. Lu Yuz, who went out to inquire about things, restrained his temper and did not conflict with anyone. He was very obedient and seemed to be very obedient when he inquired about things with others. With his well-behaved and supple face, many people thought that he was a simple person. Young man, I just told him everything. Hey, don't a Euro trademark T you know? 3 days ago, a murderer appeared out of nowhere. Several boys and girls under the age of 16 disappeared in Linza City. When they were found, their hands were cut off and their bodies were thrown in the wild. The death situation is terrible. I see that you are still young. If you want to enter the city, you must be careful. The eldest brother guarding the city gate shook his head and felt very sorry for this matter. He thought that everyone else wanted to leave this place, so why did Lu Yuz, a young man, still want to go in? Isn't this asking for death? This elder brother misunderstood. I came here to seek refuge with my relatives, and I didn't a Euro trademark T know that something like this happened here. According to you, if I have a sword, am I not allowed in? Lu Yuz understood that it turned out that a series of murders had occurred here, so he checked so carefully, but the next question was related to Shang-Chi. He asked this deliberately because Shang-Chi had been carrying the giant sword on his back. He never gives up. Now that a murder has occurred, it is particularly important whether Shang-Chi enters the city or not. The young master is joking. If you don't carry a sword, you can't even save your life outside. How can we in Linza refuse others to enter the city for this reason? The little brother guarding the city gate shook his head. He was very unconvinced by this reason. Because now is the warring states period, no matter who can wear a sword, otherwise he will only hand over his lucky dominance to others. What's more, people from any country advocate martial arts. People who practice martial arts have always been able to come and go freely between cities. No matter what happens, they will not refuse. In this case, thank you very much, brother. Lu Yuz inquired about these things before returning to Lu Feng and explaining the news clearly from beginning to end. According to what the Chinman guy said, even if Shang-Chi carries a huge giant sword on his back, Linza will not if they refuse to allow him to enter the city. It seemed that Shang-Chi, who had come to Lindsay earlier than them, was already in the city, and they had to enter the city to find this person. Without further ado, they quickly arrived at the city gate for inspection. Entering the city, but the city is so big, how difficult is it to find someone? The only good luck is that the giant sword has two obvious characteristics, so the only way to find the sword and its owner is by asking around. But before they even set out, people from the government came to their door, which was very helpless.